Welcome to Sudz Shotz, a look, a taste, and tour of some of the hottest and most contemporary breweries and distilleries across North America and beyond. As well, we'll talk about the stories of the people behind them, and during the course of this program, we'll showcase an array of innovative components within the industry and illustrate just how prevalent distilling has become and continues to grow exponentially in key markets across the continent. The booming craft beer scene is nowhere near reaching its ceiling yet, as prime West Coast markets such as Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver continue to experience phenomenal growth, while the collateral effect of the beer gold rush continues to further create new and exciting beer environments. In fact, as we speak, there is likely no known major area remaining within the borders of North America that does not have some kind of craft beer scene, or at least the very foundations of one. And that's where we come in. In this episode, we'll visit Santa Rosa, California in Sonoma County, an area most associated with the wine industry, but home to a blossoming craft beer scene. We'll head to a prime spot on Vancouver's iconic Commercial Drive, which is home to one of the largest collections of whiskeys you'll find anywhere in North America. We'll head to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where that city is just embarking on the craft beer craze. And proving the beer world has something for everyone, we'll meet the founder of a craft non-alcoholic beer that has hopheads jumping on board in a big way. Now, when one thinks of Northern California's Sonoma County, the immediate association is with wine, and while the area is replete with award-winning wineries, to no one's surprise, there is also an ever-growing emphasis on beer as breweries continue to spring up in the region. Fog Belt Brewing was founded in Santa Rosa, California in 2013, and is named after the area along the Northern California coast where the redwood trees grow from Big Sur to the Oregon border. Fog from the coast fosters a unique ecosystem known as the Fog Belt. Sudz Shotz spent some time in the Golden State to visit Fog Belt Brewing. Remy, it's nice to be here in your haunts here in California. There seems to be an incredible beer scene all up and down the West Coast. Where does Fog Belt rank in there? When did you jump into this thing? And more importantly, what made you jump into the beer thing?
Thanks for having me. We opened about 3.5 years ago, so I would say we're at this point one of the older new breweries here in Santa Rosa. I would say there's about at least a half a dozen that have opened since we opened our doors at the beginning of 2014. But before that, we have a long history in Sonoma County. Bear Republic Brewing Company, of course Russian River Brewing Company here in Santa Rosa, 3rd Street Ale Works, Lagunitas was in Petaluma, Sonoma County, so quite a long history. And then of course New Albion way long ago that kind of started the craft beer scene again after Prohibition in the United States. We kind of got into brewing, my business partner and I, our fathers were both winemakers, and I think growing up it was always really easy to get your hands on some fine wines, and it was always sort of a rare treat to get your hands on some quality beer, or even not so quality beer.
It's a pretty thriving community, and it seems like the more the merrier. Like there doesn't seem to be any limit. Like nobody says, wait a minute guys, we already got enough, like maybe get into do a prime rib steakhouse or something like that. What is it about beer that just people are willing and brewers are wanting to see more and more competition?
I can't speak for every beer scene, but I think that in our neck of the woods, we do have such a thriving wine scene. There's so many wineries here, and I think what that has taught all of us is that if there was only one winery in this area, people wouldn't really come from all over the world to come to this location and seek out wineries. And the better everybody does, the better it is for everyone else. And so I think that everyone in our community, at least, has a real kind of sense of camaraderie. We're all here trying to make quality beer. We're all trying to support everyone. I mean, people are going to come from all over the world to go try Pliny the Younger in February when they release it, and they're going to want to go to all the other breweries hopefully as well, and we know that they're going to go try that beer. But we're hoping that everybody supporting everybody is really just good for everyone's business. So.
Okay, so you made reference to Pliny the Elder, Pliny the Younger, I should say, because that's the one that people seem to camp out for and stuff. So is there a certain style of beer that's prevalent? I mean, I know from looking at your beer menu here, you do a lot of wet hop stuff. I know we happen to catch you today on a day when it's actually brew day. What's brewing? What is like literally flying off the shelves here that you can't stock it fast enough?
I mean, in this part of the country, IPAs, double IPAs, triple IPAs are the most popular, and I mean that's very calculated by our predecessors. We have always really enjoyed those type of beers, and our IPA is far and away our best seller. I think we do a really good double IPA as well. That's probably top 2 or 3 in terms of our best sellers as well. But we like to really have like a very dynamic beer list, as many different types of beers as we can, so we have a little bit of something for everyone. We do wet hop beers because this part of the country is kind of like a salad bowl. We have a lot of really great agriculture here. It used to be a thriving hop growing community, and again, kind of going back to the wine industry, we have all these little microclimates, and my business partner sort of co-founded a club, I guess, called the Northern California Hop Growers Alliance. It's like a cooperative, and essentially we organize maybe 15 different growers from the area who have small quantities of hops, and we grow them, and we were able to sort of host fundraisers. We bought a hop picking machine, and so it was something we really wanted to celebrate, the wet, fresh hops that are just locally grown. We had a huge festival last weekend. We released 6 different wet hop beers. Local agriculture and cuisine is a big focus of ours, on top of making quality beer.
Remy, I must ask you, because we're in California, and when people think of the craft beer boom and the craft beer bonanza, kind of like the gold rush of California, I would say the craft beer boom, the craft beer gold rush happened further north in Portland. Is that still considered the epicenter of craft beer, or do you think, because I know in British Columbia there's a great craft beer scene. Washington's got a great craft beer scene. California, virtually every state in the union, every province in Canada. Would you say that it's still the nirvana of craft beer, or has everybody else caught up?
I think it depends on who you talk to and sort of what your criteria is for, sort of quantifying that. I know San Diego has probably 130 breweries in that area, and they're a large county, large city, and they have a lot of room for that amount of breweries. But I read an article recently that put Santa Rosa ahead of them as the beer city because it's per capita. It's judged by consumer, how many people are actually buying local craft beers. As I was sort of saying earlier, everybody's success, I think, is better for everyone else. And I would love to see just a huge craft brew train that just went all the way from like Oregon, Washington, wherever, just up as far as you could, and just boat train just all the way down south to San Diego, and just celebrate all the different areas and locations and different styles of beers that are being made. I think it would just be better for everyone in this business, and to share what we're all doing and working really hard at.
I think you're onto something there. And one final question I must ask. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Your name is Remy Martin. And you told me earlier that you have a sister, Aston Martin, who's about to be wed, and we'll change that name. But Remy Martin in a beer business, did you ever think of maybe getting into spirits, maybe some cognacs or something like that?
It's definitely something we've played around with, and we might want to try to dabble with eventually. My business partner's family owns a small winery, so sometimes we do incorporate grapes into our beers we make, sometimes different fruits, and I think that we would really be interested in doing a little bit of distilling. We have a relationship with the local craft distilling scene in this area, which is really booming as well, and we've had some friends make whiskey from some beer that we've made, and it's all something that we would definitely like to play around with. Yeah.
Fog Belt is just one of a number of breweries to pop up in the predominantly wine-growing region of Sonoma County, California. The craft beer scene includes other popular breweries, such as 3rd Street Ale Works, Two Tread Brewing Company, and the legendary Russian River Brewing, home of the world-renowned annual brew, Pliny the Younger. Coming up on Sudz Shotz, for those who love whiskey, we'll take you to one of the most impressive collections of the spirit you'll find on the menu anywhere in North America. Welcome back to Sudz Shotz. Collectibles can take many shapes and forms and include anything from sports cards and stamps and coins to antiques. A collection can be started either intentionally or in some cases accidentally and organically, and yes, it certainly can include wine and spirits. Eric Fergie has been a restaurateur in Vancouver for a number of years and has long focused his spirits program on his passion, sharing his love of fine whiskey. Fetz has since become the leader in that spirit as people visit from all over the world to gaze in awe at his collection and sample from some of his incredibly rare and aged whiskeys. It's the stairway to heaven of whiskey at Fetz Whiskey Kitchen.
It is the stairway to heaven. This is we've got a massive whiskey collection. We just love it. We've been collecting whiskey for years. We've always had a large whiskey selection here. And with our love of whiskey, we just kept growing and decided, you know what, let's just see where this takes us. We currently have about 1,200 bottles on the shelves. We have whiskeys from 11 different countries. We've got from India, obviously Scotland, Japan, throughout the world, a lot of Canadian American whiskeys. We do. We've got a lot of, I hate using the term entry-level whiskeys, but we've got a lot of whiskeys that are very appealing to a new palate. And we've got some absolutely outrageous, old, rare whiskeys that are for the collector. We spend a lot of time with them, talking about whiskey. The flavor profiles are what's most important. So we work with 12 flavor profiles, and we engage our staff in learning the fundamentals of those different flavor profiles, which enables them to work with the guest and see what the guest would like. And we can have a chat, find something for them. We work with our whiskey, so we always make sure that we have tight corks. If we find something that's not what we want, we will replace it, we'll fix it. And we've had to take the odd bottle off the shelf, but we take very good care of our whiskey. Out here on the West Coast, it's heavily peated whiskey. That's what people love. So the Ardbegs, Lafroigs, those are really big for our guests. When I was 30, I just felt a need for whiskey, and I needed to learn more about it. So that's almost 30 years of collecting. Our goal is to find the whiskey that suits you. So we get a lot of new whiskey drinkers coming here. I don't like whiskey, but I want to learn. So we will find their entry whiskey, but there is a whiskey for everybody, and it's just finding that whiskey.
While being surrounded by scores of top-shelf whiskey can not only be somewhat intimidating but potentially costly, Fetz offers something for everyone from the novice on up, and tasting flights at affordable prices. Coming up on Sudz Shotz, a husband and wife team from Washington State decided to open a brewery, but not in Seattle, their home city and renowned beer mecca, but threw their hat in the relatively new brewing scene in Puerto Vallarta. Welcome back to Sudz Shotz. Reed and Miranda Mortimer are a Seattle couple who decided to embark on the brewing industry, but foregoing the Pacific Northwest beer bonanza in their own backyard, they're forging ahead as part of the ever-evolving craft beer scene taking place in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
I was an elementary school teacher in Seattle, and I got a job in Mumbai teaching at an international school there. I was there working, he got a job as well.
Yeah, working for a brewery. I literally walked in to an Oktoberfest, and the owner said, "I'd love to see Americans in my bar. Can I take a picture of you guys?" And I said, "You can take my photo if you'll give me a job." And I was just joking.
We thought it was a joke,
He
yeah.
said, "If you know how to brew, I've got a job for you." And I knew I was a home brewer before, and I knew how to basically brew. So when she got her next job in Mexico teaching, we said, well, why don't we look at opening a brewery? And we looked at the numbers and looked at opening in Seattle, and that wasn't going to happen ever because we don't have, we're not independently.
We would have needed a lot more investors.
We're not independently wealthy, and we don't have rich friends or family. So we were on the Gulf Coast for her job, and we said,
We've been to Vallarta.
We've been to Vallarta about
before.
10 years ago. Let's go there. This is a cool city. That's how we ended up here. We paid a company to ship and import our tanks. We have 15 tanks. It's a 7-barrel system. So they're all pretty heavy. Not, you need a team of people to move them, and ideally a forklift. And we go, oh great, we'll go and unload them, and we'll figure out the rest. And we get here, and they don't have a key to the trailer. So first job was to find a hacksaw from one of the local construction sites and a hacksaw and a mallet and break it off. We get it open, and I foolishly think that there might be some sort of unloading apparatus in the back because that's what we had discussed
a few times. And delivery means you'll help us unload, right? Yeah, no problem.
Swing open the back, and tip to tail, it is nothing but stainless steel. And we go, oh my God, it's 20,000 pounds of steel, and we have no way to unload it.
Everything is imported, all of our hops, our grains, so that can be quite a challenge because not only does everything have to go through customs, which is a variable timeline, but it also means we're paying importation fees on everything.
Yeah, we're paying more than what homebrewers in say Vancouver pay for their ingredients, and then we're selling our beer at Mexican prices, which people expect to be cheaper, whether or not that's accurate or fair. I think from my perspective as the brewer, what makes us unique is we're bringing true West Coast, Northwest style ales down here.
So we get people from BC, Washington, Oregon, California all the time that recognize our flavor profiles and are saying, oh, this is just like the beer I have back home.
They go. We actually had someone in just this morning from Seattle, and they go, are you from Seattle? This beer tastes like Seattle beer. So I think that's what we're doing differently is we're bringing our own taste down. And what sets us apart from Seattle breweries is we're also brewing beers that work for this climate. So, for instance, our porter has a lighter body than you might find in a porter up north because it's 100 and whatever degrees and 90 whatever % humidity. So we're making beers that are both familiar to us but also appropriate for this. I would say Mexico is poised to explode.
Yeah.
Vallarta is a different crowd a little bit. It tends to be a lot of people who chose Vallarta for its proximity to the West Coast and come down for kind of a traditional Mexican experience paired with the fact that it was inexpensive. There are a lot of places to go in Mexico, and a lot of people choose here because it's a hub for places like Alaska Airlines to fly into. And so we are having to push back going, no, our $3 IPA is worth, 3 times as much as your $1 Corona, and that's because of this. And so there's a lot of education going on, and that's anywhere that craft beer is growing.
And to say that Reed and Miranda's dream is booming would be an understatement, as Monzon Brewing is literally cleaning up in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Coming up next on Sudz Shotz, what do you do if you like to drink beer but your body says otherwise? Simple. You invent your very own non-alcoholic version of your favorite style. Welcome back to Sudz Shotz. Ted Fleming is a man who enjoyed his beer but was forced to forego his pleasure due to a medical condition. After being underwhelmed with what then was available and referred to as non-alcoholic beers, Ted decided to create his own craft-style version, but one that took the concept to new heights. Thus, Partake Brewing was born, and hoppy beer lovers can unite behind a non-alcoholic IPA. Interesting concept here, because I am an IPA guy, and the hoppier the better. Partake Brewing is out of Toronto, Ontario, and you have designed and created a non-alcoholic IPA. First and foremost, what brought you to this point?
Yeah, so for me, my story begins a little over 10 years ago in beer and brewing. I was in my late 20s, and I was really starting to get into the blossoming craft beer scene that was starting to take root in Toronto. And unfortunately for me, that journey kind of got cut short due to a diagnosis of Crohn's disease. And the diagnosis, in combination with other life events like becoming a father for the first time, really made me focus on my health a bit more. And one of the decisions that came out of that was a decision to give up alcohol. And so I tried a lot of the non-alcoholic beer available in the grocery stores, and it was, it generally tasted pretty bad, and there was really nothing in terms of variety. Everything was lager. So that sort of set me down the path to creating my own craft non-alcoholic beer and an IPA.
Well, I think that any experiences I've had with non-alcoholic beer, I think people just are more, it's the habit of having a bottle to their mouth or something like that. I don't necessarily know that they're enjoying the liquid. In the world of IPAs, and I still have not tried this, I'm going to blind taste test this, because me being an IPA guy, I'm curious to see if you've been able to replicate the flavor, and I know in talking to you, you have.
Yeah, I think we've done a really good job with the hops that we've used and the all-grain brewing method, and we've basically recreated a process to make a non-alcoholic beer. A lot of people think you have to de-alkalize it or do other processes. So we kind of broke everything down, started from scratch, and said, how do we make a great tasting non-alcoholic craft beer and an IPA, and how are we able to, can we actually make it on a fairly traditional brewing system with some modest modifications that we can take a business case to a brewer and say, make this beer. It's not going to cost you a whole lot extra to do it, and we'll sell a lot of product, because I think there's now a market for great tasting non-alcoholic beer.
And how has the public responded to it? Like, I mean, have you done any test cases where you've sort of blind taste tested with people that are used to hoppy beers?
Yeah, so we were recently at a show in Toronto that was largely a beer and alcohol centric show, and I think we were the only non-alcoholic product there in terms of beverages. And a lot of people would come by our booth and just pick up a sample and taste it and say, oh, that's a good IPA. And then we'd have to say, well, it's not exactly what you think. Right. And a lot of them, they'd consider that for a while, and they say, wow, you know what, I would drink that as just a regular IPA beer. And some wives would say to their husbands, oh honey, you should drink that should be your weekday beer. And so we got some great reaction, and the feedback on the actual product and the beer was overwhelmingly positive.
For people that do enjoy the alcohol content in beer, are you finding that you're catering primarily to the non-drinking market, or are there people like myself that enjoy the taste of an IPA enough that I'm quite willing to have a non-alcoholic one?
I think our early adopters and people that are really supporting us now are people like me with a medical condition, or pregnant women, or religious abstainers. But there's that situational market of people who will drink alcoholic beer in certain situations, but also see a time and a place for a non-alcoholic product. And if we can get the taste right, which I think we have, I think it's a pretty compelling argument if you're just doing yard work in the middle of the day and you need to stay sharp for later on, or you just don't want to be tired, or even at lunch during the week in a business meeting, you can have a beer and still be able to function at a high level in the afternoon. So I think there's a lot of situations where this could play in and could be a suitable alternative for people.
I'm guessing also that there's probably less regulatory concern to create a non-alcoholic product and make it available as opposed to an alcoholic product. So is this something that you could pick up in a Safeway or a corner grocery store at some point?
Yeah, so the traditional grocery channel is a big channel for us. You could potentially see this in convenience stores just to pick up as just a refreshing beverage. I drink it after hockey, just with the guys. They're drinking some of them are drinking this now, but a few of them are still drinking alcoholic beer, and we all hop in our car and drive home. But it's nice to have, know that you're fine behind the wheel with drinking this. So, yeah, lots of new opportunities.
And you're sort of involved in a non-alcoholic theme, so there's non-alcoholic spirits as well, and you do stuff online. So obviously that is the mantra of Partake, is you're not going to all of a sudden introduce alcoholic versions of beers. But how far can you expand the line? So you've come out of the gate with an IPA, which I think is a pretty gutsy move to start with, but where does it go from here? You must have other plans in the works.
Yeah. So we started with the IPA because we wanted to be different, and there was a market. We heard from our customers from the online business that they wanted craftier, hoppier styles of beer. So, we tried to give them that first. But there's also a market for, I think, a craft lager, which we're working on, and also a stout. So we're hoping to have those products in 2018 in the spring for the lager, and then hopefully in the fall for the stout.
In addition to their IPA, Partake Brewing has since added to their lineup with a non-alcoholic stout and lager. And that is a wrap for Sudz Shotz, where we showcase all that's good in a bottle, a can, a keg, or a growler, or a glass. Please remember to always plan a safe ride home and drink responsibly.